The press room wasn't prepared, bro. The internet wasn't prepared. Without a doubt, Jake Paul wasn't prepared. The Kardashians' entire 17-year drama cycle looked like a kindergarten group project because Anthony Joshua simply strolled onto that platform like a villain in a billion-dollar Marvel remake and issued a warning so harsh, so spine-shattering, so career-ending. Reporters froze as if their Wi-Fi had failed. Cameras trembled. "Yeah, I'll be back when this is over," Jake Paul's spirit remarked as he exited the building and took an Uber. What's the most bizarre part? This was no "I will defeat him" speech delivered in a kind British manner. No, not at all. Joshua delivered the sentence that rocked the room. "I will punish you, not fight you." He leaned in with that serene, menacing energy, the kind your mother has, just before she said, "Keep talking and see what happens, not send you an outbox." Punish you is the kind of statement that is accompanied by at least 2 lightning strikes, a choir of demons, and a thunderstorm. Jake Paul attempted to brush it off with a smile, but his expression betrayed him right away. His smile vanished like a cheap folding chair. And at that very moment, the world came to a horrifying realization at last. Jake Paul found someone he couldn't talk his way out of. You could literally feel the pandemonium boiling in the air like a pot of instant noodles left on the stove for too long as soon as the press conference was announced. Wearing sunglasses large enough to protect his ego, Jake Paul strode in as if he were going to give a lecture in a classroom rather than take on a 2-time heavyweight champion with fists strong enough to move continents. Why is Jake trying to beef with Anthony Joshua? Was already being whispered by fans on the internet. Has he lost a wager? Did he inhale too much oxygen from influencers? There were queries on the internet. However, no one anticipated that a verbal earthquake would provide the answers. Jake approached the microphone and began doing what he does best, which is to overtalk, oversell, and overestimate his prospects. He made fun of Joshua's calm energy, used some snarky language, and even attempted to make fun of AJ for being too respectful. This is because, according to Jake Paul's reasoning, showing respect is obviously a sign of weakness. Jake said things like, "I've never been punched by a man built like a Greek monument, and honestly, I'm still not sure how physics works," with that quintessential YouTuber arrogance. This is where the storyline takes a telenovela-like turn. Anthony Joshua did nothing but sit quiet, be calm, examining Jake in the same manner that a lion examines a deer who unintentionally entered its cage. That was the first indication that a serious situation was developing. And no, it's not dangerous, like a small disagreement on Instagram Live. This was dangerous in the same way that you realize you forgot to save when you hear boss music in a video game. The change was noticeable to reporters. Even the camera zoomed in slowly, as if the cameraman was pleading for overtime compensation. You could see their pens hovering, their eyebrows raising, and their tiny journalist hearts whispering, "Oh Lord, something's about to go down." Jake continued to speak. He persisted in pushing. He continued to prod the animal as if he were unbeatable. For a little period, it appeared as though Joshua would not answer. Nearly then, without warning, AJ leaned forward. You could sense the tension leaving Jake's body as the room fell silent. With the composed assurance of a man who has witnessed actual violence, real combatants, and real consequences, Joshua placed both hands on the table. The influencer vibe abruptly vanished as he raised his head and saw Jake Paul's gaze. Anthony Joshua didn't appear to be a boxer at that particular moment. He appeared to be a judge giving a verdict. He uttered the words that are currently reverberating on the internet in a low, calm, and terrifyingly deliberate manner. "I'll punish you." Not exaggeration. Not gossip. Not promotional content. a warning that was backed by 10 years of severe violence. A warning that would cause enough psychological harm to send Jake's PR staff into emergency prayer mode right away. A warning that caused the thermostat to drop 5 degrees. Jake's jaw actually quivered. Suddenly, his sunglasses seemed too heavy for his face. He made an effort to keep up the big grin, but it became a bewildered half-grin, as if his brain was buffering. Even his internet admirers stopped posting their typical Jake Paul is the future of boxing remarks to write. Wait, bro. This didn't sound like a joke, since it wasn't. The problem about Anthony Joshua is that he doesn't make a lot of noise. He is not disorganized. He isn't a living example of drama. He doesn't speak to amuse the algorithm. It's to ensure that you completely comprehend that he is preparing something exact, regulated, and unpleasant. Additionally, his use of the word punish wasn't theatrical. Rather, it was the tone that every older brother adopts before giving you a lifelong beating for touching his PlayStation. The press room immediately divided into 2 impassioned groups. Even though they weren't involved in the battle, they experienced genuine fear. People began searching Google for Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul prediction. Jake, on the other hand, appeared to be a man who had just realized that he had neglected to rinse off the self-tanner and that he was now standing next to a heavyweight Terminator who could only defend himself with protein powders and delusion. His throat was cleaned. His microphone was adjusted. He attempted to speak once more, and that's when it dawned on him. Joshua did not blink, with the focus of a man reading directions on how to create an adversary. AJ continued to stare at him, and something about that appearance altered the room's overall atmosphere. Jake's jokes suddenly failed. His confidence seemed fragile. Main character gave way to background extra who survives 5 minutes in terms of energy. Twitter took off right away. Joshua's warning began to be compared to well-known movie scenes. Bro. This reminded me of Thanos wishing Iron Man would remember him. When Jake fails math for the 3rd time, AJ looks at him like a strict father looks at his son. Jake believed he was in a joke video on YouTube. Joshua believed he was in a documentary about repercussions. However, the tension in the press room continued to rise as the internet went crazy. At last, Joshua clarified, remaining composed, courteous, and menacing. He claimed that Jake went too far by acting as though defeating retired mixed martial arts competitors was comparable to facing an Olympic caliber heavyweight. Jake's disdain, he added, was immature. He claimed that although Jake had no concept what it was like to be an adult, he still wanted to play adult games, and like a cheap pool, float at the beach. Jake's confidence collapsed with every word Joshua said. The media began to murmur. Every micro-expression was recorded by cameras. Even Jake's coach reclined, saying, "Yeah, ... We're not built for this conversation." Meanwhile, AJ's team sat contentedly, as though they had already decided that Jake Paul would be their go-to cardio warm-up. However, Jake's response to Joshua's warning was more outrageous than Joshua's warning itself. He attempted to respond with a clap. He tried a line of retaliation. However, the words became lodged between his regrets and his throat. Not once, but twice, his voice broke. He attempted to dismiss it with a joke, but it sounded like a dying Bluetooth speaker. The second-hand disgrace struck everyone in the room like a tidal wave. At that point, the first disclosures appeared on social media. A member of the press room tweeted, "Jake is furious. The man appears to have just watched the trailer." For his own funeral, a different reporter texted, "A fight is not being promoted by AJ. He is getting ready to make a sacrifice." Additionally, another person posted the now viral caption, "This is a countdown, not a press conference." The warning was chopped and altered with dramatic music, thunderclaps, and anime zoom-ins by TikTok editors in a matter of minutes. There was no avoiding the reality, even in spite of Jake's efforts to take back control of the story without even raising his voice. Anthony Joshua had just made Jake Paul a popular meme. A fight was no longer being promoted at the press conference. It's captured Jake Paul's realization that he had, at last, encountered a man who speaks with consequences. The world responded to Anthony Joshua's warning on the internet in the same manner that people do when Apple releases a new iPhone, instantly, irrationally, and with little regard for their own obligations. In a matter of minutes, the video became viral on every social media site imaginable, including TikTok, Instagram, X, Reddit, your grandmother's WhatsApp group, and possibly even LinkedIn if someone felt brave enough. The internet fell apart, not simply broke. Additionally, all of the meme pages were already honing their digital tools. The first battleground was Twitter. Memes surged more quickly than Jake Paul's post-loss justifications. One of the most popular posts featured Joshua staring at Jake with the caption, "When your dad comes home and the report card is on the table." Another featured AJ edited as Darth Vader, telling Luke Skywalker, "I am your punishment." The TikTok creators turned Joshua's warning into a theatrical masterpiece by adding dramatic opera music, which made Jake appear like the last villain in a Disney film, the one who is vanquished. In 7 seconds, when the hero finally decides to stop playing around, celebrities then joined the mayhem, as if it were a disrespectful flash mob. Jake looked like he was about to apologize to the entire UK, Snoop Dogg wrote on social media. Snoop Dogg wrote on social media. The Globe instantly went into full detective mode when the press conference finally came to a conclusion. Or rather, hobbled to an awkward, tense halt. Like they were dissecting extraterrestrial material, fans examined Jake Paul's departure frame by frame. People claimed to have seen Jake's legs sway. Around the 47-minute mark, someone said that Jake's soul had clearly left his body. Fans joked that Jake was calling for assistance after a slow-motion video of him blinking so quickly that it almost looked like Morse code appeared. However, the actual unraveling took place after the show rather than on stage. The fallout spread more quickly than a Kardashian scandal that was leaked. Every media outlet, podcaster, streamer, and aspiring analyst with a microphone and ring light began offering their opinions on the warning heard around the world. Influencers responded in disbelief. Expert warriors responded with joy. Additionally, there was emotional upheaval among Jake Paul's own fanbase. Prayer hands were being posted by some in his comment sections, others penned inspirational words. On TikTok, one man even organized a candlelight vigil with the comment, "Stay strong, champ, it is possible to forgive." On its own, Jake Paul's exit from the building went viral. His team surrounded him like Secret Service agents, but instead of defending the president, they were attempting to keep Paul's ego from blowing up on its own. He walked out with that stiff upper body posture of someone trying way too hard to look confident while internally Googling how to survive a heavyweight uppercut. Anthony Joshua, on the other hand, emerged as a man who had just given a sermon rather than as a threat that rocked a social media empire. Joshua was cool, collected, and almost angelic. Without speaking another word, he shook hands with reporters, grinned courteously, and walked away. He was 10 times more terrifying in that silence. The internet had already concluded that Joshua was getting ready for a cleaning rather than a battle. Reactions continued to swirl back online. Reaction videos with the following titles were posted by well-known commentators. Jake Paul just made a massive error. Joshua cuts off Jake's career of trash talk. This man is not prepared. Jake Paul appeared to have seen the afterlife. The overarching theme of all those films was that Jake Paul was facing a force of nature rather than merely a combatant. A man who didn't even protest, swing, flex, or raise his voice. All he said was that punishment was on the way. And the entire world of influencer boxing shuddered at the serenity of that reality. However, the repercussions extended beyond jokes and comments. Companies began to reevaluate their participation. We might need to postpone Jake's promotional segment until after the ... double quotes situation, which translates to until we see if he survives, according to a leaked email from a sports firm. We don't know if we should produce merch if our client might get folded mid-round like a lawn chair, one unnamed sponsorship representative acknowledged. Promoters of boxing had a blast. According to reports, Eddie Hearn made the joke. Jake's been talking like a heavyweight, but reacting like a lightweight. Retired boxers also jumped in to warn everyone that boxing isn't a place for loud personalities. They claimed that this incident demonstrated what many people already knew. Clout and hype are insufficient defenses at the same time. Jake Paul's public image changed so drastically that it could have been the subject of a Netflix documentary. Jake marketed himself for years as the noisy outsider, the bold disruptor who could use his YouTuber energy alone to force his way into boxing. Now though, for the first time, real vulnerability was observed on the internet. The rise and potential fall of Jake Paul was the title of the edits that fans began creating. Others created compilation tapes in which Jake's stern demeanor prior to the warning was contrasted with his surprised expression following Joshua's verbal abuse. These videos were dominating, not simply trending. The amount of content was overwhelming. TikTok. Like gremlins, Instagram Reels proliferated. Mothers on Facebook even started posting the video with comments like, "Pray for this boy." However, the consequences weren't limited to the public. Jake was particularly affected. According to insiders, Jake was incensed over how the moment went viral. The internet, not Joshua. It's hilarious that he thought the memes were disrespectful and out of context, given that Jake has spent half of his career making fun of people. However, the emotional harm had already been done. Like a girl who had experienced a breakup. Jake posted motivational sayings on his Instagram story for the following 24 hours. Things like stay focused and life's biggest challenges build the strongest warriors. Remain resolute. He will punish you. And clown emojis swamped the comment section every time he shared something inspirational. What's the most bizarre part? Even Jake's opponents united. Something we haven't saw since everyone on the internet decided that pineapple on pizza is controversial. At the same time that Jake Paul was terrified, hateful influencers were suddenly standing side by side and smiling. That has a lot of power. That's cultural cohesion. That is essentially world peace. However, the long-term effects were considerably more severe. Analysts began to wonder if Jake's hallmark confidence would eventually crumble. They surmised that the warning revealed something more profound, a reality check Jake hadn't had since starting the sport. This was not fake beef, influencer versus athlete, or a retired mixed martial arts fighter. This boxer was exceptional, disciplined, heavy-handed, and technically proficient. He did not participate in promotional games. Jake appeared to be a character that had accidentally clicked expert mode without reading the tutorial, according to several fans. Others likened the circumstance to a student disparaging the instructor just before learning that the final exam would account for 90% of their mark. People were unable to ignore Jake's response. Despite his attempts to recover with a few intense interviews, his voice broke. His expression became rigid. His eyes grew wide. The moment owned him, not the other way around. Anthony Joshua, however, experienced an unanticipated rise to legendary, intimidating status. Memes proclaimed him the calmest threat in boxing. Others began referring to him as the Gentleman Reaper, and entire fan groups declared that Joshua's one sentence put an end to trash talk. Mike Tyson intimidated through rage, a fan tweeted. AJ uses quiet to intimidate. They are both dreadful, for various causes. The entire plot had developed into something cinematic by the end of the news cycle. Jake Paul was more than just a competitor. He turned into the underdog. The underdog was anxious, scurrying, and a little scared as he tried to regain his composure and show that he wasn't affected, despite the fact that everyone could see him at that same time. Conversely, Anthony Joshua was no longer only a fighter. He was a human version of an existential crisis, a walking reminder of reality. A quiet storm. A man who, by declaring the inevitable without getting up, shouting or threatening violence, managed to convey the most terrifying message of 2025. The world anticipated entertainment as they watched the news conference with prophecy. They departed suddenly. The battle changed from being a boxing match to a survival tale. A tale about discipline versus ego. A tale of influence versus consequences. In an attempt to control the situation, one man entered the press room, owning the decade. The other left. Jake Paul was not merely silenced. He was exposed, humbled, and made to confront the harsh truth that words are meaningless when the man across from you speaks in destiny. And there you have it. Jake Paul's realization that life isn't predetermined, that power won't save you, and that Anthony Joshua isn't a man but rather an impending deadline with fists. Congratulations! You have officially survived today's episode of pure, unadulterated craziness direct from Legends Boxing, where scandals don't just break, they detonate if you are still here after seeing Jake's spirit attempt to leave his body on national television. But before you go off to say Jake is done, for the 47th time today, please do me a favor and hit the like button as hard as you can. Slam it like big bags are slammed by AJ. Jake Paul feels his ego vibrate when you hit it so hard. While you're at it, let me know in a comment if you think Jake will work out more or start looking for other employment options, like influencer meditation coach on Google. Naturally, you should subscribe. Not courteously, not lightly. Subscribe as if you were securing a front row seat for the next meltdown. Because this boxing cosmos has been moving, believe me, there will be another scandal, another caution, another tumultuous news conference where someone says something so outrageous that it goes viral. And you already know who will deliver it to you with unrepentant smoke, exaggeration, and sarcasm. There is no sleep on this channel. Drama never stops. Fighters don't relax. After that warning, Jake Paul is undoubtedly not sleeping well, so why should you? To ensure that you never miss a moment of catastrophe, illusion, or destiny falling in real time, click the bell icon as well. Legends Boxing is this, where the fighters cease throwing, but the impacts continue, remain confined. Soon, there will be more pandemonium. There will be more pandemonium.